करते जाओगे मैं जाएगा नहीं वहाँ चल जाएगा नहीं जाएगा। मोबाइल खाली हम पीपीटी मोबाइल आपका माइक लगा है कॉलर का ऑन है चेक करिए। हेलो हेलो ऑफ है
आ रहा है आपका।
हेलो
42 महाविद्यालय जलालपुर जौनपुर में इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ साइंस सोशल साइंस रिसर्च नई दिल्ली द्वारा प्रायोजित एवं 42 महाविद्यालय जलालपुर डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी द्वारा आयोजित 2 दिवसीय नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस का आज दूसरा दिन है। आज दूसरे दिन पे उपस्थित सम्मानित सदस्यों का मैं हार्दिक स्वागत एवं अभिनंदन करता हूं। आज के टेक्निकल सेशन 1 का आगाज़ हो चुका है, जिसको चेयर कर रहे हैं प्रोफेसर राघवेंद्र पांडे और सब चेयर प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर अमित केसरी की अनुमति द्वारा इस सेशन की शुरुआत की जा रही है। आज इस सेशन में अपने शोध पत्र का वाचन करेंगे मुनेंद्र प्रताप सिंह, रिसर्च स्कॉलर। मैं उनको सादर आमंत्रित करता हूं कि आप आएं और अपने शोध का वाचन करें।
Thank you, sir, for giving me the wonderful opportunity to present my paper over the role of National Education Policy 2020 in the conservation and exploration of the traditional knowledge about biodiversity in Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. So, mainly my paper is based on the how we construct knowledge about the traditional paradigm and how we can connect the knowledge with the foundations of NEP 2020. This paper emphasizes the need of integrate indigenous knowledge systems into the mainstream education, recognizing the crucial role they play in conserving biodiversity and foresting sustainable development. As we discussed already, we are focusing here how can we so emphasis over the construction of knowledge by using the tools of traditional mechanism and how we integrated this knowledge to the new enrollmentary system, the parliamentary system of education policy called as the National Education Policy NEP 2020. This paper explores how we NEP 2020 can facilitate the conservation and exploration of traditional knowledge about biodiversity in the Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. It will analyze the potential role of education in promoting sustainability through the indigenous practices while also focusing on statistical data and case studies that illustrate the biodiversity and richness of the area. So, in the next slide, we will discuss the background of the study. My study area is Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. Actually, the Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve is a very beautiful biosphere reserve located in the Amarkantak region with the location of 22°.6 north and with the south alignment. So this is the, as we can see, this is the main core area of the Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. There is a 3 main phases in our area. The first area is a transitional area that can be described as a potential area for the commercial activities. The second area is buffer zone. In this zone, we can't do the commercial activities. We can only, this is only allowed for the wandering groups and tribal minorities of their specific locations. And the third one is core zone. In this specific area, we can't do anything. This is a completely protected area, protected by the Forest Rights of India. So this is the overall construction map of my study area. Study area profile. These are the boundaries. These are blaze boundaries of the study area. I highlighted the total blaze number of situated under the Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. It is systematically. So there is a proper segmental division of the tribal population into the villages. NEP 2020, a framework for the knowledge integration. So this is the main concern of this topic. This is the paper. So NEP 2020 provides an essential framework for incorporating local knowledge systems into the formal education. The first paradigm can be discussed to promote the multidisciplinary learning. actually NEP is designed for how we construct the knowledge by using the epistemology and ontology of different segments. So we are discussing here some kind of 2 or 3 segments, just like first one is promote multidisciplinary learning. In this case, NEP encourages the educational institutions to offer programs that combine ecological sciences with traditional knowledge. The second segment is the documental indigenous knowledge, to document the indigenous knowledge. In this segment, we can call for the systematic documentation of indigenous knowledge, how we can construct knowledge, what is the major traditional outcomes and knowledge about the tribal communities in this specific area, what can we consider the major findings of biodiversity conservation in that specific area. The third segment is the capacity building in the indigenous communities. In this section, we focuses on the building educational programs that enable indigenous communities to contribute to national and global conservation on biodiversity conservation. Actually, this point is saying how can we construct the knowledge paradigm to develop the enhancement of the traditional knowledge related to the tribal communities of a specific area. So how can we enhance the understanding of local communities about the traditional knowledge and all these things. The last point is the use of regional languages. How can we recognizes the importance of teaching in the regional languages, making it easier for the indigenous students to access the education and relate to their traditional practices. How can we develop a mechanism to promote the local students to enhance their construction of knowledge about the traditional knowledge of the specific area. In this the next slide, the case study, traditional knowledge in Achanak Mara Amarkantak Reserve. In this slide, we will discuss about what are the major subtypes of the traditional knowledge related to the tribal communities of that specific area. So the first segment of this knowledge is sustainable agricultural practices. As we know, they are tribal, so they are very commonly known as agricultural or pastoral communities and hunter-gatherers communities. So the indigenous Vegas and Gond communities in the Achanakmar Amarkantak region practices shifting cultivation and grow the multiple crops without depleting the fertility of the soil. Their farming practices ensure the minimum disturbance the forest ecosystem, preserving biodiversity. The second segment is the forest resource management, how we can manage the forest resources like the local tribes have developed the knowledge systems that allow them to use forest resources such as medicinal plants without causing harm to the ecosystem. For instance, the Vegas are renowned for their herbal medicines which can be used to treat various ailments. The NEP 2020 encourages the documentation and the dissemination of such practices. The next segment is a statistical overview of biodiversity in Achanakmar Amarkantak Reserve. In this segment, we will present some kind of statistical data about the formation of traditional knowledge related to that communities. The first point is the flora. As we can discuss, the flora is the reserve is home to approximately the 1050 species of plant, of in which 350 are medicinal plants traditionally used by to the local tribes. Under the NIP 2020 programs can be integrated to each student the significance of these plants and the traditional medicines. This is the NEP. Then how can we correlate these things with the national framework of the education? This is the main concern here. This is the flora and fauna. How can we discuss some kind of methodology, some kind of mechanism to develop these flora and fauna and uplift these communities by developing some kind of mechanism about related these concepts. The next point is integration of indigenous knowledge in curricula. This is specific curricula contains a very much of indigenous knowledge. So the NEP 2020 spreads the inclusion of the local ecological knowledge in school circular by integrating the traditional knowledge systems of indigenous communities in Achanakmar Amarkantak region. Students can begin as a better understanding of biodiversity conservation practices that have evolved over centuries. How we perceive knowledge, how can we construct knowledge? This is the answer of that segment. This is the actually Achanakmar Amarkantak region is a very specific and the oldest human settlement area. So how can we perceive the traditional knowledge coming with generation by generation to generation to pass down through some kind of mechanism? So we can highlight that mechanism. How can we construct, how can we transfer the ecological or traditional knowledge to one generation to the another generation? So can we apply this segment to our specific or another geographical area? How can we conceive that knowledge and how can we transfer that knowledge in a specific area? So the second segment is a community-based learning. In this segment, we can develop such kind of policies and programs that focuses the community-based learning. The policy encourages experimental and field-based learning. Indigenous students as well as those from the outside communities can participate in biodiversity conservation efforts by learning diversity from the local tribes. This promotes a deeper connection with the environment and respect for the sustainable living practices. The next segment is the strength of the local livelihoods. How can we manage, how can we enhance the local livelihood by developing some mechanism just like NEP 2020, by highlighting the main stresses and the difficulties faced by these local communities to gain the livelihoods. Challenges and recommendation, these are some kind of recommendation in the case of Chanakmar Amarkantak reserves. So while NEP 2020 provides a robust framework for the integrating traditional knowledge, several changes remains. The first one is a documentation gap. There is a documentation gap in the specific study area. There is no proper study to how can we concrete, how can we construct the knowledge by documenting some kind of traditional mechanism. The second point is a lack of trained educators. So there is a shortage of educators who are trained in the both formal and ecological sciences and traditional knowledge systems. Specialized teacher learning programs are required to bridge this gap. So we will have to find some kind of ways to integrate and overlap this gap by developing some kind trained educators and implementing them in a specific area. The third point is infrastructure deficiencies. Many schools in rural and tribes area lack of necessary infrastructures to implement NEP 2020's vision. If effectively, investment in these areas crucial for the success of the policy. This is the major concern here of our paper, the infrastructure deficiencies. There are many deficiencies in tribal area about the education related to the education. There are some schools, they can't hold some kind of mechanism to regulate in such proper way. So we have very much concentration of this specific agenda. We can develop such kind of mechanism to regulate the proper segment of education in a specific area. The fourth one and the last one is a language barrier. All we know they are tribal communities, so they are all languages and differences. So we can't overlap these differences. We will have to respect these differences. Although NEP 2020 promotes the use of regional languages, creating educational materials in the diverse dialects of the Chanakmar Amarkantak regions remains a challenges. Tailored content to this respect linguistic diversity will be essential very much. That's one. The next slide. These are the conclusion. We are here to discuss the conclusion about the integration of traditional knowledge NEP and an NEP 2020. Actually, NEP 2020 offers an unprecedented opportunity to conserve and explore the traditional knowledge systems about biodiversity in a Chanakmar Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve. By embedding this knowledge in formal education and promoting the multidisciplinary approach, the policy can help preserve both biodiversity and cultural heritage. This is the main concern. Actually, when we formed the NEP 2020, we didn't consider how the traditional mechanism will correlate the foundations of NEP 2020. So there is a lack of the proper agenda of doing the connection to establish a connection between the traditional knowledge and the foundations of NEP 2020. So we are lacking some point here. However, it is a potential to be fully realized. Adequate infrastructure, trained educators, and the systematic documentation of the indigenous knowledge will be essential. Through these efforts, traditional knowledge will not be very worthwhile contributing to the both local and the global conservations. There are some citations here that I use in my paper. There are some kind of photos related to the field visits that I done in the last May 2024 with my colleagues and co-learners. Thank you very much. Is that any query or questions related to the segment? So you can ask freely.
जैसे आपने अब बताया बायो रिजर्व अमरकंटक, तो आपने फील्ड विजिट किया, तो आपको क्या लगा कि वहाँ को जो बच्चे हैं उनको साक्षरता में कितनी कमी है, कैसे वो NEP 2020 में जोड़ा जाए और उनका जो विकास हो शिक्षण स्तर में कैसे विकास किया जा सकता है?
The main concern related to the education of child policy or all these things, I got a very interesting news about the school dropouts. There is a very much high rate in school dropout in this specific area because there is some kind of government have to be proper as a failure to get an update over the dropping outs enrollment in the schools. The main concern about these dropouts are, the first one is our paradigm is very not so clear about the regional languages. So we will have to develop some kind of mechanism that teach the students or children in their mother tongues. This is the first concern. The second concern is the timings of schools. Actually, this specific area is very imbued with some kind of tribal communities. So there is some kind of issues with the school timings. We can't afford with the natural setting of school timings because they are tribals, so they have some kind of lands and agricultural activities at the moment. So the boys or girls can't go to the school regularly. That's how I observe. My third point was these are the beggars. They are the naturally imitated, called as the son of the earth. So the primary focuses of their lives is only all about to sustain with the remain contacted with some kind of natural phenomena. So education is perceived as a natural phenomena is a better understanding of education to him, not a curriculum education. So this is a very big fault of NEP 2020 to incorporate these dealings in context of tribal communities in India. Is that any queries? Anyone else? Thank you.